What's up, everybody? It's Wincy Terry Bryant, your host for the Arts Ignited podcast, an extension of NJPAC's Standing in Solidarity program developed by the Arts Education team. Our experts light up the mic with honest conversations that welcome social justice topics into the classroom and spark change in any learning space. I hope you've had a chance to listen to our first episode on the arts of advocacy. In our second episode of Arts Ignited, we're chatting with James Miles, the fresh professor, about how hip-hop serves as a dynamic bridge that connects the culture of youth to positive educational outcomes. I can't wait to dive into this conversation, but first, let me tell you a little bit about James. James Miles worked as an educator in the New York City public schools for almost 20 years prior to moving to Seattle. Originally from Chicago, Miles has worked internationally as an artist and educator. He is the Creative Economy Manager at Seattle's Office of Economic Development, an assistant professor at Seattle University, and he sits on the advisory board of South by Southwest EDU. His work has been featured in media, including Seattle Times, the New York Times, Billboard Magazine, NPR, CBS, NBC, the United States Department of Education, and more. His acclaimed TEDx talk focuses on his mission to narrow achievement gaps using the arts as a tool to navigate systems of educational inequality. He is the author of my new favorite book, Gotta Stay Fresh, and you can learn more about James at freshprofessor.com, but you're going to learn more about him right now because I'm going to welcome him to the microphone. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. I love that introduction. Thank you so much. I feel honored.
You deserve to be honored. I want to get us started with you just telling us a little bit about what brings you to this work.
Oh, what brings me to this work? Great question. So it must have started when I was a very young person. My first memory is that of darkness, and that is when I had surgery in my eyes. I was a very lucky young boy with long flowing eyelashes. They were so long and flowy that they grew so long into my eyeballs.
Oh my gosh.
So at some point they were irritating and I had to go to the doctor. And part of that surgery, I had not temporary blindness, but I couldn't see. I had an eye patch over my eyes for like a week, maybe 2 weeks. So I remember not being able to see and just feeling and touching and smelling and tasting things and igniting all of my senses. When I was able to see again, I literally saw the world differently. And I just saw my friends differently as a young 4-year-old. And I was like, there's something going on. I wanted to be part of the community that was school at that time. So I think because I had this new perspective on life, literally a new perspective, I wanted to do something different. So I think it started in kindergarten, and then having a teacher, my first black and only black male teacher was Mr. Pickett, 5th grade mathematics. And because of him, I became an accountant briefly. That's a story for another time. But because of him, I became that accountant. And I saw the role he had in my life, and I wanted to have that kind of role for others. That's why I got into the educational side. The entertainment side is, I want to take that back to Boogie Down Productions, 1990, right? And that's their album called Edutainment, which is a mixture of education and entertainment. In 1990, I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I wanted to do it. So when I heard that, and the teacher at KRS-One was rapping and speaking about societal ills, the beats were melodic, his flows were amazing, and I was learning. I learned so much about Black history through hip hop, stuff that wasn't taught in schools. And I said, there's something there. There's an essence there that I need to be a part of. So that's the beginning of my journey.
I'm so excited. I get increasingly excited about this conversation as I hear you speak. NJPAC had Chris do one of their events. We do these outside events in front of NJPAC, and KRS did one of those not too long ago. And of course it was packed, and he is so dynamic, and his story is so compelling, and to have taken that and to have educated all of us. I had the pleasure of working in the studio with Chris, and he's like all about a vibe. And so I remember going into the studio, and he said, I said, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to freak the vibe. And I was thinking, is that harmony? Is that unison? Like, exactly what are you asking me to do? I love that you're talking about, Chris, and like all of the things that hip hop can do to teach. And then you talking about Mr. Pickett, your
Yes.
classroom teacher, who had this impact on you, which is just an example of the impact that teachers can have on their students that follow them throughout their lives.
Never would have known that. Never would have known. He also taught me how to juggle. And so
Really?
he taught me how to juggle, and he was a math teacher. So learning how to juggle from a math teacher opened my life up and my world view to say, like, you don't have to be defined by one thing.
Right.
You know, you can do whatever you want to do. You can have multiple outlets in life.
I love that, because when a teacher builds trust with a student, they can really teach them anything.
Yes.
So like, here's this math teacher teaching you how to juggle, and you're like taking it all in from him, whatever he's offering. I love it. So tell me this, because you highlighted or unearthed
Yes.
for us, or accentuated this natural intersection between hip hop and education. So
Yes.
tell us, why is this work even really necessary?
I think it's necessary for many reasons. You know, I didn't invent hip hop education. Hip hop education lasted long before I. I mean, we just talked about Chris Parker, KRS-One.
Yeah.
That's hip hop education at its foundation, going back even to the 1970s with White Lines, right? You're learning about the streets
Yeah.
through music.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it was. You know, hip hop literally saved my life. Yeah, I learned a lot about myself, other people, different communities, different perspectives. When Cypress Hill came on the scene, you know, there was MCs rapping in Spanish. You know, when MC Light and Moni Love, female MCs, right? Biz Marquee, the Clown Prince of MCs, right? You have all these different identities that are not a monolith, and that represents education, right? They're all hip hop. All students are students, but each student is individual, and they each have their own identity, and it's about time we respect that. So I think that's the one single connection to hip hop and education. The other is, it's the culture of humanity. You know, we bring in our culture to school, so why not let that culture flourish inside that school and build off of it, instead of tamp it down and say, whatever happens in your house, whatever you listen to at home, that's not real. What's real is happening in school. Well, that's not true. Young people come with a whole vessel of experiences.
Sure.
Right? They come to schools with so many different experiences the minute they walk into the door. And oftentimes, as has been the case for several hundred years, that experience is left to the side or pushed aside.
Right.
And said, no, you have to follow this pathway. Well, if you say, well, what are you bringing into this classroom that's going to benefit all of us and enrich yourself? Let's do that, because that's going to enrich just not you, but it's going to enrich everyone in this classroom. So it's hip hop.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, because asking students to ignore their culture while they're in
Yes.
school, like the hip hop culture, which is their culture,
That's
I
their
think
culture,
right. I think it's as ludicrous and upsetting as you asking me not to speak any Spanish while I'm in school because my teacher doesn't speak Spanish, or
Right.
not to speak patois, or to try to lose my accent. Like these children are hip hop natives. You know,
Yes.
they're born into this time where this is, the culture is hip hop. I love that. And you talked about it like you used some language that talks about like the bridges that hip hop builds. So the bridges between the culture and the education, the past to the future, the hip hop sampling. So I can tell you more about, rock or another class of music if you let me present it to you in something that I love to hear, which is
Right.
hip hop. Then
Yes.
I can talk about those links. So my connection to you, whatever kind of music you like and the music that I like, don't make me deny my music, and then you put your music up on a pedestal as if your music is the only music. And then like that whole culture, the women of hip hop who
Yes.
kind of got women recognized, like the MCs like Moni Love. So fun fact, I'm the featured vocalist on Moni Love's hit single, It's a Shame.
Right.
And I was singing that song, It's a Shame. And so I got to meet all those people and see them fill these stadiums and people be together like dancing, and every race, every creed, every nationality, every color, just all like grooving and vibing and having a good time. And your book, Gotta Stay Fresh, is showing us how that's available in the classroom.
Right. And how amazing it is that I'm talking to you when you sang it's a shame. Like that was my jam.
Oh my
First
gosh.
of all, I just gotta give you so much props for that. Like I love that song.
Yay!
My father would play that song all the time in the car, and we would drive around the city of Chicago as kids. And then when I moved to New York, it was like it was the soundtrack of my life.
That's so funny. That's so funny because you know what? I learned it because my brothers and sisters were so much older. And so they were listening to, like the original artist sing it. And so when it was time to go into the studio and they were looking for somebody who knew it, I already knew it. And so that's an example of you talking about bridges. Like me respecting, me thinking back in the day, like, my brothers and sisters are so old and that song is just in the back of my head. But now, for these people, these rappers and this culture to bring this stuff like full circle and make it relevant and current again. And I think that, classroom teachers are doing themselves a disservice by trying to deny that that's going on. So I want you to talk about like how hip hop is connected to better academic outcomes. Because I know you said something about Zoom and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So if we look at, let's talk about music in general.
Okay.
Right. Music, when we listen to music, it activates all four quadrants of our brain.
Come on.
Just by listening to music. So we're already thinking more critically. Our brain is more active just by playing a song. If you play a song with other people, your heart beats to the same rhythm. Literally, you're beating to the same drum as other people in that classroom. So you can control the moods of young people in an entire crowd. That's why the DJ runs the crowd. You can slow it down, ease the pace, speed it up if you want to get something excited. So that's just the music. And then the neuroscience of it is it also lowers your stress levels, your cortisol levels. So you're able to take in new information because you're not stressed about things, right? We know that young people experience adverse childhood experiences. It hinders their ability to take in new information. When you lower their stress levels, right? They're not always on that fight, flight, or flee, or freeze. They can relax and say, okay, what is this person talking about? And then add in the music part, add in the hip hop elements, the emceeing, the graffiti, the DJing, the breaking, and the knowledge of self. So adding all those elements, that's the entire body and your sense of self, your sense of belonging. So if you bring that into the classroom, you're easing your way in where everyone sees themselves as welcome. So that's just on the neuroscience level. Yeah. When you get into the actual hip hop pedagogy and the principles, there was this program that I used to work in and helped run that was called Fresh Prep in New York City. There was a high school version called Fresh Prep and a middle school version called Fresh Ed, hence why I'm called the Fresh Professor. The Fresh Prep program worked with young people taking the Regents exam. So for those that don't know, the Regents exam is a required exam. Well, it was a required exam for high school seniors and juniors to take to graduate from high school. This program, 75% of the students that took this Fresh Prep program had failed the test 3, 4, 5 times. After taking Fresh Prep, 75% of them passed. They didn't just pass, they raised their scores by 27 points. And they graduated college with honors. 82% graduate with honors. That's an amazing attribute just in hip-hop education. When you bring that to other cultures, right? Hip-hop's everywhere. No matter where you go in the world, hip-hop's everywhere. The program, the curriculum that I developed, the music that we produced is used around the world. And we're seeing how hip-hop has inspired educators in different languages to use hip-hop in their classroom and seeing the same kind of results. Students are lifting their heads up, paying attention in class, looking at each other as human beings and not as enemies, looking at the work as differently, developing that critical perspective. Well, if KRS-One is saying this, or maybe taking more contemporary, if Kanye, even more contemporary, if Chance the Rapper is saying this, or Jid is saying this about himself. What does that say about me? We've had similar experiences. He looks like me. Even if I'm a young white student or a young student from Ukraine, they can see themselves in the music because it's speaking to the humanity of us all. So when you're able to connect to that, you're connecting to humanity. And when you're human, you do better in life, right? That's just right. That's just simple. You know, that's simple Maslowian needs. You have your food, shelter, love, play, and care. Like that helps you. That's what you need to survive in this society. So I could go on and on about how great hip hop education is, but most important, it makes youth feel seen and heard.
I love that. I love that. And so I want you to speak to the classroom teachers right now
Yes.
who are
Yes.
like wondering if this conversation is even for them.
Oh, yes.
Because there are classroom teachers who are probably listening to this saying, I don't like hip hop, or like,
Yes.
I'm not an MC. You're trying to turn me into an MC. And to me, MC
No.
means move the crowd. And I don't know how to do that. So, like, what do you say? Like, who's qualified to teach hip hop?
Everyone is qualified to teach hip hop. That's like saying, who's qualified to teach about living? We've all lived a life, so we can talk about living a life. It's really about not the rap music. It's about the 5 elements. So I'm gonna break it down.
Break it down, break it.
MCing. We all know what MC is. We think of a rapper. But as an educator, as a pedagogue, an MC, how do you use your voice in the classroom? How are you showing up for the students? And what are they saying to you? And what are you saying to them? Right? So we want to all be MCs that can move the crowd. Or let's move the classroom. Right?
Move the classroom.
Let's move the classroom. Right?
Love it.
DJing. Like every educator goes into school and says, I got to change things up a bit. How do I hit them this year? That's called DJing. You're mixing things that you never thought they would be mixed together.
Nice.
You're combining 2 unlike things to create something new. You're a DJ. Graffiti. How are you visually expressing yourself? When you show up in the class, what are young people wearing? What do they have on their trapper keepers? I just showed my age. What do they have on their trapper keepers or their computers or their laptop covers? Right? How are they expressing themselves? And then how are you expressing yourself? Do you resemble what the students are wearing? You know, the most popular day of the school year is dressed like a student day.
Nice.
Why is that? Because the students see themselves in the teachers, and the teachers see themselves in the students. And everyone has fun because it's playful. So how are you showing up for the students? Visually, that's graffiti. Breaking, that's your body. When breakdancing originated, they were dancing to break beats, hence the term break dancing. So how are you moving in the classroom? What's your body language suggest to young people when in the room? Are you closed off? Are your arms crossed? Are you looking down? Are you making eye contact? Are you nodding along to what they're saying? Are you turning your head? Are you ignoring them? Do you turn a cold shoulder to them? And then how do they do the same to you? When you ask to call their name, how are they responding, right? So what are they breaking? How are they doing it? How are they dancing? And then knowledge of self. That's just simple. Sense of belonging, sense of self, sense of ownership, growth mindset, right? Hip hop education is about rigorous instruction that's also fun and engaging. So if you have that sense of self, you can take on a challenge because you know inside, you belong in that school. You know you belong in that classroom. You know you can excel because you believe in yourself and your teachers believe in you. And even your classmates, some of whom you may not even vibe with, can say like, yo, represent. He's not my friend, or she's not my friend, or they're not my friend, but yo, respect, because we've developed a sense of self within all of us, that knowledge of self. So that's the 5 elements. So can any teacher do that? Yes. That's Danielson framework. That's Danielson right there. So if you're a hip hop educator, you're automatically doing the Danielson framework.
That's amazing. If you're just joining us, I'm sitting with the fresh professor, and he just broke down the 5 elements of hip hop. And so you just made it not just music. Like
it's not just music.
That's what you did, because I think I read something in your book about like how it's not like rap and it's not like a beat that makes it hip hop. So there are other artists that you were saying are hip hop artists. Like you named
Billie Eilish is hip hop. Taylor Swift is hip hop.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so clarify that again. So how could Taylor Swift be hip hop if she never raps or
Yes.
rhymes over a hip hop beat.
The origins of hip hop started from the streets, right?
Okay.
And I say the streets, I mean literally the streets. That's where people break danced. They were dancing on concrete. So when you listen to Taylor Swift's music, she talks about her own lived experiences. That's very hip hop. That's very hip hop.
Come on.
You know, she's trying to connect with the crowd. She's trying to move the crowd, literally. When she's saying, everyone's got bad blood. We all got bad blood. Hey, right? That's hip hop.
Yeah.
Like she's taking some of the machinations of hip hop and bringing it into her own pop music. That's very hip hop. She's connecting with the crowds, no matter what they look like, no matter who they dance like. Everyone loves Taylor Swift, and everyone knows Taylor Swift. So that's part of the cultural milieu of all of us. There's nothing more hip hop than Taylor Swift saying, you know, for all my real ones out there, you're like, Taylor Swift talking like that? You know, holding cats, representing in an Instagram post. She's profiling. She's styling and wilding. That's Taylor Swift. She's hip hop. So, you know, it's not just the rap music. It's music in general has taken on this timbre of hip hop because it's about human expression and unfettered expression. So we should all embrace that.
Wow, that's very great. That's great. So now we have students who may not accept hip hop from their teachers if it does not look the way they are used to hip hop looking. And because I know that, you know, the kids in the hood, they're looking for an authenticity of hip hop, and the
Yes.
teachers are concerned. I'm sure teachers, I hear you thinking out there. I work a lot with teachers. They're concerned about the hip hop that they hear or that they
Yes.
know about coming into the classroom. So what do you do when a teacher says, okay, I'm going to try it. And then a
Yes.
kid brings a song that the teacher is offended by. What can we do about that?
I think there's two ways to look at that. One, does a song offend just me, or does it offend everyone in this classroom?
That's good.
You know, because some things are said, you know, that are only offending to me. And then you look at everyone in the classroom; it's bothering no one else. It's not hindering any learning, but it's making me upset. So what's the point here?
That's good.
It's like, well, why am I focused on this? It's because there's some cognitive dissonance to what I expect to happen in the classroom, and they're doing something differently. So let's turn that around and say, like, okay, let me check my thought, let me change my thought, and let me do something different, right? So that's one. And then there's no denying that if someone brings that song in, everyone knows it already. It's like no one's bringing in something that no one's ever heard before. Like, it's well known. So if you want to say, well, we're not going to play that, the young people know it already. It's not like we're not pulling the wool over their eyes. It's not 1980 where things were, you had to go to the record store to buy it, or 1970. This is streaming. You hear things the day they come out, minutes after they drop. You hear a song on YouTube, on Spotify. So that gap between an album dropping, people not hearing it, and then coming to the mainstream, that's gone. Now it's the album drops, we know it immediately. Mm-hmm. So if the young people know it, so why try to dismiss it? Just accept it. You don't have to listen to it in class, but you can reference it.
Okay.
Right? You can reference it. Like, I'm not trying to say bring in Cardi B's WAP, right? I'm not saying bring that into the classroom. But everyone knows that song.
Gotcha.
So that song could be about acronyms. All right, we know Cardi B has an acronym for WAP. Let's not talk about what that acronym is. But what are other acronyms we face in society?
That's great.
Right? What's SCOTUS mean? What's POTUS mean?
That's great.
You know?
Yeah, that's a great parallel.
Right.
To what they would need to know, like really just to exist and work in the world without feeling like everything is so separate. So there's my world and there's my teacher's world.
Right.
There's the world that, you know, is out there, and then there's my world in the hood.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that is a great connection. Now I know you have some pretty like strong views about like standardized testing.
Yes, I do.
What say you about standardized testing?
I despise standardized testing. Now, I want to be clear. I'm a big fan of assessment and rigorous assessment. But standardized testing is not that. Standardized testing is testing a student on what they know on a certain day, at a certain time, in a certain year, at a certain moment in their lives, and then judging the rest of their lives based on that one test.
Wow, yeah.
We've all had bad days. We've all had good days. So one test should not determine your academic future. That's why I despise standardized testing. We can still assess student learning and do that on a frequent basis, even having pop quizzes, right? But those pop quizzes should not be determining like, oh, well, 80% of my students don't know this answer on this day, therefore they're failing their school. Or how do we connect the learning to more of their own personal experiences or their human experiences, and then base them on that, right? If we're studying the Civil War and they forget who's in the North and who's in the South that one day because, they woke up, they're hungry, they don't know. They're like, I forget, was it the Virginia North or South? I don't remember. But if you say, all right, now, what are two beefs we have between the North and the South? Who remembers this? What are other beefs we've seen in life? Right now, we see war in Ukraine and Russia. We see Gaza and Israel and Palestine. What else? Oh, we see Kendrick and Drake, right? We see people beefing all the time. What was the Civil War about? It was about taxation. It's about slavery. What else were you talking about? How do we connect that to what young people are listening to today, right? Those same conversations about high taxes, about empowerment, owning one's own body, having right to their own choices. Those are still conversations happening in current day society. So why are we trying to disconnect that from reality? Let's tie it right back into what we're facing every single day. So it's about connecting to the human experience that we are currently living in instead of staying in the past or separating what we experience now from what we learned and what we will learn in the future.
And that's great. Hip hop as a way to teach history, current events. That's really valuable to classroom teachers. And again, it's not possible to separate if you use hip hop. It's not possible to separate what's going on in the students' lives, which will make them, like you keep saying, feel seen.
They'll feel seen
and valued.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
I was having a conversation with Sir Mix-a-Lot a couple months ago. And this was right after the Drake and Kendrick beef.
Okay.
Right when it started. And I said, so Mix, who won that beef? His answer, YouTube. Now, how do you talk about that in schools, right? You tie that into capitalism and money.
Wow, come on.
Right? Who's making the money off this? It's not Kendrick and Drake. It's record companies. It's streaming services, right? We can also talk about the fact that Drake and Kendrick both licensed their songs so that people that they could play them on YouTube, comment on them, and receive remuneration for that, right? Typically, if you use someone else's music, you have to pay that person. But all the songs they had in their beef, they licensed for free so that anyone can have a comment track, so that people could make money off their own beef. Like that's like it seems like they were at odds with each other, but they're working to support the entire community together.
Yeah, I like that. So what grade levels? Because I mean, if we have elementary school teachers listening to this, they might feel like this is not for my class. So what grade levels would you say that this kind of methodology is appropriate to start with?
I would say pre-K through 12th grade through college.
Come on.
I mean,
how? Tell me how.
How?
Yeah.
Well, how do we teach the ABCs? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Same thing. How do we teach the anachronistic in 1492, Columbus sails the ocean blue? That's all rhythmic. It's all rhythm. We're doing it anyway. Why not bring in the music that they're listening to? Gracie's Corner is one of my favorite YouTube channels and favorite Instagram pages.
Yes, come on, I love it.
They make some
your
great...
hands, it's your birthday.
Yeah, clap your hands, right?
Yeah,
and it's connected to the very young. So you can start very, very early because young people are already listening to it. They hear it on the streets. They hear it in their homes, right? And like I said, it's not just rap music. It's the music of the culture of young people. No matter what their age, they know what hip hop is because it's around them. The way they dress, the way they talk. You find 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds saying, that's sus or that's mid. They know what that is. They hear it from their elders, their parents, their siblings, their cousins, their neighborhood, their community, friends. They know what it is. They don't have to hide it. Just accept it, embrace it. Or at least accept it. May not embrace it, but accept it.
Yeah. So you have some really cool strategies in your book. And if you don't have this book, you guys have to get this book, Gotta Stay Fresh. It's Why We Need Hip Hop in Schools. And so I'd like you to share just like one strategy, like off the top of your head, from your book that would, for a teacher who could maybe like who's listening to this right now, who could roll this out in the classroom tomorrow? Any grade level, just tell us what the grade level is and tell us something that worked. Because all of the stuff you mentioned in your book is stuff that you've really actually applied. Yes?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
The simple ones, and this is done pretty much already in the younger grades, but having a circle, right?
Okay.
Having class in a circle. Hip hop starts in a cipher where everyone has the same power. Anyone can battle each other in a cipher, right? If Wency and I are in the cipher and you rap first and I go, we're not trying to literally fight each other. We're just trying to express each other and see who's the best MC. Iron sharpens iron. So starting in classroom in a circle where everyone has the same power, teacher included, where you can share your opinions and your thoughts, that's an easy thing we can do because it simplifies and levels the playing field for the classroom. It's not just the teacher at the front of the classroom and students as empty vessels that need to be filled. It's we're all vessels. We have all some containment within us. Let's share it with each other. So that's one thing we can all do. Another thing we can do is activate the classroom, make it come alive. When I think of graffiti, that's visual expression. How do you turn something that you're going to lecture about into something visual? Let's say geography. Whether geography for a 5-year-old, we're just learning your neighborhood, your town, where you live, your community, or to a 12th grader, we're learning global history and global geography, like the capital of countries and what the topography. You can just put that map on the floor. Okay, please go stand to the west. And what's west? If I'm Chicago and Jamal is New York and Stacy is Florida, where is China? Simple geography. Just turn that onto the floor using your body, using visual expression. That's a simple thing we can do. Those are just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And I've done those. My favorite thing to do, and this is what hip hop does very well, is that we've all seen those old school hip hop photos where people cross their arms and posing, peace signs, right? How do you turn that tableau? That's a tableau, a frozen image. Turn that tableau and then activate that tableau with words. Make that frozen image come alive.
I love that.
And then you assign a role to those words. All right, we're gonna do Jefferson crossing the Delaware River, right? Now make it come alive. That's simple hip hop, right? And put it in your own words. Like, what would Jefferson say when he touched the ground on the Delaware River? What would he say? Yo, when the U.S. everyone, what's up? 1776, baby. Right?
So I have a question about, first of all, what you're clarifying for us, I think, is that what a lot of classroom teachers perceived as hip hop, or what we perceived as hip hop, is not the full. It's not the full picture. Spectrum, right? Of hip hop. There's so much more to hip hop. So you don't have to be a rapper or a lyricist to bring hip hop into the classroom. Now, you talked about a cipher and kids doing sort of like a rap battle, right? And so of course there are some concerns about the toxic masculinity and misogynism in the lyrics that are out now in some of the rap songs that we hear. And so for a classroom teacher who would be new to this, how would they kind of set some, or would you say that they would even need to set any ground rules if I'm battling, so say I'm battling Jamal and I say whatever I say and then Jamal starts to maybe berate me or say things that I would feel, humiliated by in the classroom. How do they manage that? Or would you say they do?
I would say you do manage that because you create a sense of community in your classroom first, where there's some guidelines, right? I have something called the 3 class commandments. That's named after Biggie's 10 crack commandments. But I have the 3 class commandments. That's participation. How can we all participate? That's the first commandment or agreement. The second one is safety. We're going to have a safe classroom. That means physically, emotionally, and mentally. That means we're not going to disparage anyone. We're not going to hurt anyone's feelings. We're not going to touch anyone. The only thing we're touching is the floor. So if you set those ground rules first, the students are accountable to each other. If they start calling you out, for your identity, students will be like, yo, we agree to be safe. We laid that down before we started this exercise, so we're not doing that. And the teacher just has to enforce it and support it and put it in the hands of the students, right? The students create these agreements. I say the 3 class commandments, and then I say, is there something else we should add? Then, if we all agree to this, let's put it on the board, on the big piece of paper. We're all going to sign it, and we're going to reference it every day.
Nice.
Because we agree to it, just like the Declaration of Independence, just like the Constitution. We're going to put our John Hancock on it because this is something that is our foundation. That's our foundational principle. So already connecting it back to what young people are studying anyway by making these agreements, just like a Constitution. Now, when they go outside of those agreements, you say, let's refer to our Constitution. Let's refer to our 3 class commandments. Let's refer to our agreements. Is this right? They will monitor themselves. So when you talk about toxic masculinity in songs and the heteronormativity, we can also talk about the toxic masculinity in literature, or heteronormativity in literature or history books or mathematics even, how we all learn this stuff, right? You want to talk about how the first computers that helped the first person to touch the moon were mostly Black women, those computers. They were called computers, right? So
Come on.
Let's talk about the toxic masculinity in science and how that's prevented many people from excelling. It's not just rap music that has these isms and negativity. It's our culture in general.
I love it.
So hip hop is born out of our culture. So it's not just independent, like, oh, hip hop is misogynistic and homophobic. Our culture is homophobic and misogynistic. Hip hop is a way to address that. And so, one of my favorite lyricists of all time is Lil Nas X. Why? Not because he's my favorite lyricist, like Black Thought, but because he put a new face on what hip hop is. He redefined hip hop so that young queer people can say, I'm also hip hop. Same with Frank Ocean. Same with Sid, right? They are hip hop. And they say, we are you, you are we. Like Tyler, the Creator, has come out as bi. That's huge. He has a huge following. Huge following. That's fantastic. Reference that in class instead of dismissing it.
Yeah.
It's humanity. So I think it's about representation. So it's not just like toxic. You bring everyone into the classroom, and then it no longer becomes toxic.
I love that. I love these links and these connections and these bridges that you're talking about,
right.
For the classroom. It will make for a much more effective experience for the teachers teaching it, and the students, and for respect across the board. Like,
yes,
I would like and respect my teachers so much more if I thought that they saw me.
Yeah.
At least,
they respected me. Oh, you respect me? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are the kids today. I mean, they're like, you want respect, you give respect. That's
right.
They're like, much respect. You want respect, you give respect. That's how they are. Not just because you're older or because you're in the front of the room or, I don't respect your experiences. I don't even know your experiences. I don't know anything about you. But, but if you share with me, I'll share with you. It's that I love this thought process. So now I'm going to ask for resources and suggestions, like for people who want to get involved in this. Like they're listening to it and they're saying, I might want to give it a go. I don't want to be embarrassed. I need a starter kit. I need something that I know is going to work. What would you say to them?
There is something online called Science with Tom. Tom is based out of the Bay Area, teaches science through hip hop. That's an easy YouTube source. Soul Science Lab out of New York and New Orleans. They have online and in-person curriculum that's hip hop inspired. I've worked with Soul Science Lab before. They're some of my favorite artists in the world.
Wow.
Check out Soul Science Lab. Youth Culture Power are two of my boys, John Robinson and Dr. Jason Rawls out of the Ohio State University. Jay Rawls just produced a new Talib Kweli album. He's also a professor of hip hop at The Ohio State. He's also one of my close colleagues. So check out JR, Jayare. They have a book called Youth Culture Power that talks about that. There's Wordsworth, one of my favorite MCs from when I first heard him in Lyricist Lounge and Black Stars album. He's a teacher in Florida. He's a professor. He's also a hip hop educator. There's a book called Socks. About, socks get lost in the laundry. Where do you find your socks? He's hip hop inspired. It's for little ones. those are just a couple sources. Dr. Chris Emden, Dr. Bettina Love, those are also great resources. The best resource I have for hip hop education is to talk to a young person. What are you into? Why? How does this connect to your life? What is this music? What are these images? What is this song? What is this video? What does this YouTube mean to you? Tell me about it. And then connect it back to what you're teaching in school. So the best resource is the young people themselves.
Nice. Nice. That's great. So all of these resources are going to be up on NJPAC's website. But this is so great. You guys got to get this book, Got to Stay Fresh, from the Fresh Professor, because he kind of breaks it all down for you. And his story is interwoven. So it's not just a bunch of lesson plans. It's like his story. Is that your brother who does the foreword?
That's my brother that does it forward. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So it's so great to just hear him talk about like your start, his starts.
Yes.
So great. And then you give all of these, then you do give all of these lesson plans. So
Yes.
a lot of times you get books and either they're telling their story, but they're not giving you any real world application, or they're giving you their
Theory.
real world application, but you don't know anything about them, so you don't know if they're
Right.
quite qualified. You know how you go to college to learn business by
Yes.
people who never ran a business. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not that. It's not that. This is like everything all encompassed, and then all of the other people that you just gave a shout out to for these resources. Amazing. I've had the best time with you. I want to ask you, in parting, like before you go, is there anything that you would have wanted to add to your book that you finished, like you finished the book and then you were looking back like, you know what? It would have been cool to put this in there. The next book is going to have this. Can you give us kind of like a jump start on like, gotta stay fresher or gotta stay
fresher?
fresh again? Yeah. Gotta stay fresh too. Yeah.
Yes. I think where my interest lies now is post-COVID behavior. And that's not just students. I mean, teachers and students. We've all been altered, whether we admit it or not, by the experience of COVID-19 and the quarantine and being siloed. And I'm seeing it show up in different ways in schools, in communities, with teachers, with administrators, with students. So that is probably my next book, and how how the culture of young people, when encapsulated and capitalized upon, can address some of the issues and woes we are seeing across the globe, particularly for young girls. You know, with social media, a lot of my own daughters included. A lot of social media has become the de facto news source for young people and for adults, for that matter. Probably because we're at home and we couldn't do anything else except stay at home. So I wish I had put more of post-COVID behaviors. I mean, this was written in 2022, 2023. I'm seeing a lot more of those behaviors manifest themselves several years out.
Yeah.
I wish I could have put that into the book. Yeah.
So next book?
Next book.
All right. I need to order my copy now of the next book.
Yes.
This was so great.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. Is there anything you want to leave the people with before you go? Any wisdom, any parting wisdom?
Parting wisdom, stay fresh. Gotta stay fresh. Be yourself, love yourself, and just have fun. Have fun. Just have fun. I like this quote, and I think it's in my book. It's Latin, and it's come from SPIR, which means breathe. And this came up to me a lot during COVID when we weren't supposed to breathe the same air. But spire, breathe. So let's think of things that inspire you. What makes you breathe in air that makes you think differently? Aspire. What takes your breath away? Something that's aspirational, that takes your breath away, that you want to do. What takes your breath away? Perspire. What are you breathing through? What are you sweating through? Just keep doing it. My favorite, conspire, right? How are you breathing the same air as people, right? Conspiratorially. How are you communicating collaboratively? And then expire. Don't die on us. Keep pushing. Stay alive. Stay fresh. That's it.
I love that. That's good. All the spires.
Yes.
I love that. So great. Thank you so much again, Fresh Professor, for such a wonderful conversation. I hope you all order James's book. It's available on Amazon, right?
Amazon and Teacher Creative Materials, both online. Buy it now. Gotta stay fresh. Why hip hop needs schools. Why you need hip hop in schools.
Why you need hip hop in schools. Yeah, right. Yeah, write this down, everybody. Gotta stay fresh and go order that book. Also, keep an eye out for our next episode. It's being released in the new year. And we hope you were inspired to find ways to connect with your students on their terms and bring a little bit more of yourself and your passions into the classroom. Bridges can be made of lots of materials. Why not beats? Why not hip hop? Why not? Why not stay fresh? Thank you so much. I'm Winston Terry Bryant. Yeah, we'll see you again soon. Thank you for listening to Arts Ignited, a podcast from NJPAC's Social Justice Learning Series, a Standing in Solidarity program. For educators in the audience, make sure to complete the episode survey. You'll need to do this to receive your professional development certificate. And keep an eye out for our next episode. The Arts Ignited podcast hosts honest conversations with leading experts about how the arts can change the world. You have a burning question or interesting topic idea? We want to hear from you. So reach out to us and we'll consider it for a future episode. Now make sure to follow at NJPAC and at NJPAC Arts Ed for updates on our programming. Lastly, I want to thank our friends at Yardbird Productions for producing and editing this episode, as well as Garrett, who's a young artist from NJPAC's hip hop education program, for his original music beats. That's right, those beats you hear. Thanks, Garrett. This podcast is made possible through NJPAC's Colton Institute for Training and Research in the Arts, founded and supported by the generosity of Judy and Stuart Colton.